I've been waiting for this.
Welcome everybody. This is the boy Rexon Max, and we're here with another interview, and we're here with someone who's very familiar in the FGC. If you've been in the FGC for any length of time, I mean, you know his work. He's the creator of Hold Back the Block. He does many productions as far as like video and things like that in the FGC. You see him at many tournaments. You know, one of my favorite people. I'm actually glad to be interviewing him. He was somebody that I looked up to when I was getting into, doing video and photo and stuff like that in the FGC. We got Esteban here today, man. How are you doing?
Hey, what's up? How you doing?
Doing great, man. Like I said, it's an honor to have you here, man.
I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, so we can go ahead and get into it, man. So you're originally from Philly, correct?
So I'm originally from Brooklyn, actually. Yeah, I
Oh,
live in
okay.
Philly currently.
Okay. So you were definitely deep in the scene. So you were deep into that scene in the FGC, in the New York scene when you were growing up?
So not really. I was kind of like I've always kind of been involved in fighting games in terms of like I really like to play them, like I'd be in arcades and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I didn't really kind of interact with the scene until I graduated college in like 2008, 2009. Like I always kept an eye on it, but I
Mhm.
never really like, outside of like the bigger players like Yipes or Justin or Daigo, stuff like that, or Alex Valle, like I didn't really know how it worked. So after college, that's when I started going to tournaments and learning more about like Chinatown Fair and all this other kind of stuff. So, but yeah, it was kind of like much later than most people realize.
Yeah, you kind of like me. I didn't really know about the FGC really too early. It wasn't until I got to college. I graduated in like 2011.
Mm.
I got to college, and you play games all the time when you're young, but then you start getting around people who are like in the FGC, like, oh, people take this like to a totally different level. Like,
Yeah.
like they are way better than what I thought I was growing up. So, but okay, so you grew up in Brooklyn. Like, I've always wondered about New York. Now they have all the different boroughs. Really,
Yeah.
what's the difference in all the different boroughs? I know you have like Brooklyn, Queens, Bronx. They have different ones. Like, really, what's the
Mm.
difference in all of them?
I mean, I didn't really venture out that much, but like every borough's got like different type of like flavor, different type of people, or different type. Like it's all New York, but like depending on which borough you're in or what you're looking to do, you might go to Queens, you might go to the Bronx. Like it would be all over the place.
Yeah.
So like New York is pretty fascinating because a lot of people think of New York as like the city, right, Manhattan, but
Mhm.
if you look in all these different corners, you go to all these different boroughs, there's so much to experience. It's so many different cultures. It's a really unique and awesome place.
Yeah. That's one thing you hear about it is like one of the true melting pots
Mm.
in the country of the United States, and also they say New York has the best food. So
Yeah, it's
I
pretty
hear that a
good.
lot.
It's up there.
Yeah. So do you actually prefer Philly or do you prefer New York? Which one do
I
you like more?
prefer Philadelphia. Philadelphia is really cool because it's much smaller, so you can kind of see everything a lot easier.
Yeah.
The people are pretty unique, for better or worse. Uh, and it's got a lot of art to it. So like one of the things that keeps me here, one of the things that really kind of attracts me to Philadelphia is like there's like murals and stuff everywhere because like the Philadelphia like mural arts program stuff like that. So like it's a very colorful city, a lot colorful than most people like realize.
Mhm.
Whereas New York to me is always like really gray and drab and like it's like I don't really have good feelings when it comes to like whenever I have to go to New York. Like every time I have to drive in, I'm like, oh man, I gotta go. But every time I'm in Philly, like I'm happy to be back. Like I kind of love this place. So
Is the cheesesteak as good as they say it is?
yes, but you gotta know where to go. If you
Okay.
come to Philadelphia and someone tells you to go to Pat's and Geno's, they don't like you. Like just straight up. Like, nobody willingly tells people to go there. Uh,
I gotta make sure
but
to remember that.
yeah, you can find a bunch of cool places.
Okay, so you said that you got into kind of like the FGC community and stuff like that later in life. So did the video production work and stuff like that, was that kind of first in your life?
Yeah, so I used to I don't know when it started, but like I used to get really big when I got my first computer like in 2000, like around 2000. Like I used to make anime music videos.
Hmm.
So I got really fascinated in like tying up like these really cool scenes I like in these animes with like really cool music I liked. So that was kind of
Hmm.
like the beginning of like, okay, how do I tell a story using stuff that I haven't really shot, but like, I have this song, I have this moment and stuff like that. Like, how do I tell these stories? And that's kind of where it
Hmm.
started. And like, I was like obsessed. I would make like 5 a week. They weren't really great, but like, it just kind of like on Windows Movie Maker, just cut and cut and cut as a kid. And then in college, I went to the College of New Jersey over in like near Trenton, Ewing area, and I took for my major is in interactive multimedia, which is a combination of writing, interactive computing, and digital media, so like video.
Oh, okay. So you got your degree in it.
Yeah, so like that's where I really started to kind of like explore like how to tell stories and like the different mediums you can do that and stuff like that. And that's also around the time where I started like watching tournaments, or at least Evo. Like I would watch Evo around that time, and kind of getting more aware of the scene, getting more aware of the players, like looking at the stories that are happening there. Like, oh man, that'd be cool if somebody went out and like talk to these players, or talk to these tournament organizers, or talk to people behind the scenes and figured out how all this worked. And after I graduated college, that's kind of what I did. Just kind of went around talking to players, doing little interviews and stuff like that. And then that eventually evolved into what I do now, which is kind of doing more concise or long form docs and stuff like that, documentaries.
Okay. So can you remember like the first time you kind of I don't want to say kind of like your big break, but the first time that you actually went to like a big tournament, officially doing production and stuff like that? Like how did that work into making like it your job? Like how did that start?
So like, man, it's pretty interesting. So like, I did a documentary. God, I forget how long ago, but like I did a documentary called FGC Rise of the Fighting Community, which is like documentary I kickstarted.
Mhm.
You know, I had this small little channel, Hold Back to Block, and I was like, all right, I want to take a shot. Like I feel like there were like a couple of different fighting game documentaries out around the time, and they all focused around Street Fighter. And I was like, well, fighting games and the fighting community are much larger than Street Fighter. Like, you know, we got BlazBlue, we got Guilty Gear, which is a game I grew up with. Like, got Tekken, you got all these other games and all these other like sub genres within this one scene. So let's go explore that. And that was like the purpose of that documentary. And I kickstarted it for like $8,000, which was like 15K less than what you need to make a doc like that.
That didn't sound like a lot.
So like I just paid off like that documentary like maybe like over the pandemic, like maybe a year ago.
Oh, okay.
I still had a lot of that credit card debt still on my cards.
Yeah.
But that documentary led to a conversation. It led to me meeting Rick Fire, who runs Combo Breaker and is also now the general manager of Evo. And he was like, "Hey, Bandai Namco has this game called Tekken 7 coming out." Like he didn't say it like that. Like obviously I knew what Tekken 7 was, but like they got Tekken 7 coming out, and they want somebody to go around as they bring these cabinets around to for these tournaments and kind of document it. And that was like my first kind of like real full-time like job with editing and all that kind of stuff. And that was back in 2016. So I would say like I started the YouTube channel around like 2012-ish, I think 2013-ish. And then 3 years later, I got that job. And since then I've been full-time I left my day job, all that kind of stuff. And I've been kind of freelance and that. So it was like around like 4 years or so since like starting the channel that I've been able to kind of make it a living.
Yeah, and you do different things now. Like I said, I've been to Evo. I've seen you there. You know, on social media, you see you at different events. You know, getting video shots behind the scenes. You know, whatever it is that you're specifically doing there. And so like seeing your Hold Back the Block page, yeah, you kind of inspired me to like get up and because I didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do in the FGC. I was like, man, I got a camera and I suck at actually playing the game. You know, I keep getting stomped. So I'm like, I got to figure out what I want to do in the scene. So yeah, that kind of helping, you know, we started doing different stuff here. So, you know, we appreciate the work that you do, man. It's inspirational.
That means a lot to hear. I think that so like when I was getting into like the scene, there was like that preconceived notion that if you're not a player, then you're not part of the scene, which I like vehemently disagreed with because like I can play, like I'm okay, like I'm like a medium level player, like I can maybe go 2-2 in a bracket, like you know 0-2 whatnot, but 0-2, but it was close though, right? But to me, I was like, well, the scene, like, if it wants to get anywhere, it needs to like, there needs to be people making videos or content. There needs to be people like reporting on tournaments. There needs to be people making art. Like, there's people there's all sorts of different players that play fighting games. They play for the story. They play for the art. Like, why can't we also celebrate that in the scene? So, you know, I'm happy to see such a shift, especially during when we couldn't gather for COVID. Like, a lot of the people that carried fighting games where people are making content, people are making art, people that are making like articles, all this kind of stuff. They really kind of help propel the scene when we couldn't play.
Yeah.
So you know, if my work helped and contributed to that kind of like evolution of what we think about what fighting game fans are and what we could do in the scene, then yeah, that's pretty awesome to hear.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely did. So once again, appreciate it, man.
Hmm.
And speaking of like the documentaries and stuff that you do, as a fellow content creator and stuff like that, from the work that you do, like I can imagine the type of grind it is, you know, from the
Yeah.
pre-production to the production, having to fly to all these different places and stuff
Mhm.
like that. And then, you know, the most dreaded for most people, the post-production, you know, the long grind and editing and stuff like
Mm.
that. Man, how is like the workflow for like if once you get an idea for a whole back to block video to, you know, pre-production, post-production, how is that process for you?
So I don't have like a strict process. I think every project has its own way to tackle it.
Mhm.
So like I'll do, for example, I think one of my biggest videos on the channel is the Killer Instinct documentary. I did a Killer
Okay.
Instinct documentary called Fight On, and it's about kind of development of the kind of quote unquote reboot of the game and like the story of like the development and like what happened to it and how did the scene respond to it. That idea originally popped in my head 3 to 4 years before I even like decided to do it.
Mhm.
And it was just kind of like the idea of like, what would a trailer for this look like? Because I always been fascinated about the story of the development of the game and stuff like that. And eventually I got the opportunity to do it. So then it comes to like, you know, I'll look and be like, what's my core story? You know, a lot of people are like, well, he's going to talk about the game, but really the core story is about how this development team, uh, how basically Microsoft lost the development team after one season and had to scramble to kind of remake it or scramble to find another team to kind of keep this game alive and keep it going. And how did the community respond to it? And so like I'll marinate on that for like, you know, weeks, months, years in the case of KI. And then I'll like when I feel like I'm ready to go do it, I just kind of go do it. I don't recommend doing projects the way I do because you get in trouble in terms of like maybe you take on too much, which is kind of my issue right now, where like I have an idea and I'm very passionate about it and I get very energetic about it. And then I go do it and then I come home and I'm like, oh no, I've got like 2 terabytes of footage that I have to now sit through and like figure this out. So like the KI project is like another one where like that was supposed to be like an interview with like that was like a video with like 4 people and it was gonna be like 30 minutes long. And then it spiraled into like I did 12 interviews. They're all 2 hours each. And now I've got to sit through them and make them a 1 hour and 30 minute movie. Like, okay, cool. And I enjoy that part. So like you mentioned, like post-production is like scary for a lot of people, but that is my favorite part. When
Ooh, okay.
I edit videos, I think of them as a puzzle. Like, okay, I'm trying to tell this story. What is the best way to do it? Like, what does this person say here? What does this person say here? What does this person say here? And at the beginning, it's very messy because you're like, oh, I don't know if there's anything here. You know, you're inside your head. But when you start to see it come together, like for me, that's the most exciting part. When I see a video, I'm like, okay, this is gonna be like, I'll actually get up and like run around the house because I'm so excited. Like, you know, there's no like set structure. It's mostly like I have an idea and I was like, can I go do this? Like, let's go do this. Let's go try it. Sometimes I go and I shoot a thing and it just doesn't work. Like, there's a lot of interviews I have where, like, may never see the light of day just because, like, there's been a lot of time that's passed or, you know, I'm still waiting for another interview or, like, I just get busy, which is, like, the big problem right now is, like, I'm just very busy and, like, I haven't been able to, like, edit anything, like, for the channel. Um, but, you know, I get stubborn. So sometimes I come back, like, 2 years, 3 years later and I'll be like, all right, let's get this done. Let's just get this done by any means necessary.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like when you have passion projects, those are the one you want to tackle the most. But it's like, these priorities though. You
Yeah.
know, like I
Yeah, I
gotta
gotta
go
pay
to
bills.
yeah, gotta go to this event, that event.
Yep.
So it's like you gotta find a way to squeeze in that passion project in the meantime, in between time. So I can remember doing documentaries that I'm just like, or doing videos where I'm
Mm,
just like, okay, this is only going to be 20 minutes. And then next thing you know, you are an hour and
yeah.
15 minutes deep in the timeline. And you're like, how did this happen?
Yeah. Where am I? Like what? Um, I think like for a lot of people who are like aspiring to do this kind of stuff, like the biggest thing I tell people is like give yourself a deadline Like, give yourself a realistic deadline. Like, if you're gonna make a video and like it's gonna be a 12-minute video, like give yourself like 2 or 3 weeks to do it. If you're gonna make like a movie, give yourself like a year, year and a half. Like, give yourself realistic deadlines. And then when the deadline is hit, publish it. Just get it out there. Like, it may not be perfect. It may not be completely polished. Like, there's still videos like the Killer Instinct video I watched. I'm like, oh God, like why did I do that? Why did I do that? Why did I do that? Like, that's wrong there. That's wrong there. But you just gotta get out there, because a lot of people, I see a lot of people who go to events and they have cameras and they make stuff and they film stuff and then they never put anything out. Like, I hear that all the time from TOs that give out media badges and all that kind of stuff. Like, one of the reasons why I got a lot of media badges is because like I would actually release the videos I was saying I was doing at a timely manner. So like, if you're starting this out and you're worried about that kind of stuff, like, start small, give yourself like a small video or whatever, a small topic, make it, set a deadline, put it out, regardless of the quality. Just get used to that constant of like, okay, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, and it's out. Next one, doing this, and that. Like, get disciplined. Otherwise, yeah, it'll spiral out of control. It'll be like, oh, this, 10-minute video on Kokanoe is now like 45 minutes long. What am I gonna do? You're just gonna put it out and move on to the next one. Yeah, that's the only way you really learn.
Yeah, I can remember doing a Smash Brothers documentary, and I was like, I could get this done in like 2 months. 9 months later, that video didn't come out until 9 months later.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times with people like us who are creators and stuff like that, you realize you have like this perfectionist side to you that you really didn't know that was there. Because a lot of times we'll look at our own work so harshly, but when you put it out to the public, they love it. Like what you said with your KI doc, you'll look at it and be like, why did I do this? Why did I do that? And then you go look at the comments and everybody's like, this is a masterpiece. Like, we appreciate you for this. So a lot of times we're just hard on ourselves.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
hard because like we video editors especially, like, I feel like we operate in a vacuum, right? And I think it's harder because like traditionally, a director, producer, whatnot, they make a movie and then they hand it off to an editor. Whereas in the world of YouTube, I mean, that's kind of changing, but like in the world of like the solo creator on YouTube, like, we go out, we shoot it, we put it together, we think about it for like months or years and then put it together. And then we got to go home and then also now edit the damn thing. So it's like, you're submerged in this place where like you get like this tunnel vision where point where like you believe so strongly in your plan, and then you're sitting there and you're editing like, no one's gonna like this sucks, why did I do this, all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to like battle the weird thoughts in your head and be like, no, like, we stay true to the course, we go and we get it done. So it can be very isolating and very kind of like, like it can be tough, but I think the reward outweighs like all of that.
Yeah. Uploading stuff sometimes. We uploading it to YouTube and act like we're giving it to like some of the world's best directors who's gonna tear it apart.
Yep. Yeah. I'll upload something, like, especially like the KI thing. I remember I woke up that morning, I uploaded, I was like, I'm just gonna walk away from this computer for like 2 days because I don't want to know if anybody likes this or hates or anything, because like I'm too close to it. I'll come back in 2 days, and thankfully that one, it took off. But it can be tough. This life is very demanding, not just physically, but very like much so mentally.
So could you I'm sure, like, did you imagine like Hold Back the Block getting this big? Because like, you have a group of, patrons on Patreon that support you and stuff like that. You have people clamoring for it. I mean, you could release videos like time spans apart, and then when you release it, you're getting, hundreds of thousands of views on your videos and stuff like that. Like, did you ever imagine it getting this big?
I really think it's big. Like, in my head, like, to me, Hold Back the Block, like, I had patrons and I have fans, stuff like that. But like, I don't get a chance to release a lot of things often because I'm busy with day job stuff and all this kind of stuff. And the projects are kind of way larger and way more ambitious than some creators in the space do. But like, to me, Hold Back the Block is always like my training ground. Like, that's my training room where like I want to go try this idea, I want to go try to tell this story, and and I'll go do that. But I don't expect much. Like, for me, like, I got really focused on numbers during the pandemic, because I tried to like turn it into like a career, and that crushed me, because once you start focusing on numbers and once you start focusing on stats, like, you start to lose the fun of it, and you start to like focus on only things that are working or current trends, stuff like that. And that's what you have to do for the YouTube game. But at least for my channel, I just always wanted to be a place where every project is something I'm passionate about. Every video is something I want to talk about. Every video is something I want to actually like kind of give to the world in a way. Like they're like these videos are like kind of like my kids. I tell people sometimes like I'm never gonna have kids, I don't think. So these are my young ones that I'm setting out there. Like go flourish. So I try not to think of like the size of the channel or how many fans I have or much engagements I get, all this kind of stuff. I just think about, hey, look, I got this cool idea. This is the place where I can go do it. This is the place where I can do it, and nobody can tell me no. And thankfully, you know, I picked up some patrons and stuff like that want to help me do that, and they're very understanding. They're very patient because I haven't released a video in like 4 months. But you know, it's just this place where like it keeps me humble. Of like I'm gonna go do this thing, and like this is my outlet. When I can't do something in my day job, I can go do this here and kind of be creative and be free.
Yeah. Do you also, I know you still plan on doing the documentaries, but do you still plan on doing like your content that you would do as you on the green screen and you're like being wacky, reviewing
Yeah, I
things and
mean,
stuff
I've
like
been
that?
having a lot of fun. Like those are like some of my most successful like videos. Like I think the KOF video is like at 100K views, stuff like that. And like just like because like you get bored sometimes where you're like, I love making documentaries, but like they take a long time to make. And like sometimes I have ideas where I'm just like, what if I just like got on a green screen and just started like doing weird things? Or like what if I like dress up in a suit in this KOF video and like the whole joke is that I'm not wearing any pants? Like like weird ideas that like make me laugh like I must look like a crazy person sometimes on the street because I'll get a weird idea like randomly on the sidewalk and I'll just start laughing to myself. Like I'll just start laughing and I'll be like, okay, I'm gonna go do this. Like I've got to go make this happen. um and it's fun for me, you know. It's a little tough right now because like I live in a 1-bedroom apartment, so like I can't like there are times like I want to yell on video and I can't because there are like a bunch of people around me. But hopefully,
Mhm.
like, you know, in a couple of months I'll be moving to a bigger place and that's when I can really kind of like I've only scratched the surface on how weird and how like I can get and like really strange. But once I have a place where I can be like, okay, nobody can hear me, nobody can see me. Let's really get crazy. Let's really get nuts. Um I'm looking forward to those ideas. But yeah, I think the future of my channel is like long form docs, and like these little kind of like smaller topics in between where I can just kind of cut loose and be like, all right, let's get wacky. And like it won't be for everybody, but I really honestly only make these videos for me. Like they're things I want to see in the world. So, you know, if I like it and like one person likes it, cool. Like I
Yeah.
feel like I've succeeded.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and it's good that those ones that you make, because like it's you being creative and free and stuff like that. I mean, people will see it. You know, you could tell watching the videos that you have a great time doing it or a fun
Yeah.
time doing it. So okay, this next question is kind of like a question for me personally, but I've never. It wasn't until recently when I went to Evo that I actually flew. I've never flown on a plane before until I actually went to Evo.
Oh wow.
So I'm not gonna lie, for a long time I was just scared. I was just like, look, if I'm gonna go out, it's gonna be in a car wreck. It's not gonna be in a plane crash. You know, you psych yourself out, you
Mhm.
scare yourself and stuff like that. But one of the things, if you do have a career in like media and stuff like that in the FGC, it's a lot of travel. Like
Yes.
it seems like it's a lot of travel, and you hear a lot of people complain about travel. Some people actually like travel. You know, it's a lot of, you know, ins and outs and things like that, you know, going from airport to airport, hotel to hotel, you know. Do
Mhm.
you actually like to travel? Like how is it traveling for you? You got any tips for someone like me who I'm just kind of getting into like the flying and the traveling and all that? Like,
So it's funny that you mentioned that you were like you've never been on a plane before. I used to be terrified of planes. Like
mm,
I used to like scream and like as a kid like scream and like shake or get deathly terrified anytime turbulence happened. And now
mm,
like I'm on like a plane every other week at this point.
mm,
Uh and I am like so used to it where like unless it's like really extreme turbulence, I'll get like that sinking feeling in my stomach. But other than
mm,
that, I'm like so used to it. The travel is cool in terms of like once you get to the destination. Like I've seen a bunch of places that I never thought I'd ever see in my life. But I hate being on the plane
mm,
because it's like it's uncomfortable. Like they slam as many people as they can in a you know a giant tin can that's in the sky. It's like awful. Uh, but the actual like getting to a destination, seeing places, that rules. So it can be tough though. Like, you know, people are always like, you get to see yada yada yada. Like you go to London or you go to Thailand, you know, and like yeah. Sometimes I get a chance to actually see the place I'm at. Other times, like we're in such a tight deadline that I fly, you know, 10 hours to some place, shoot the thing, and then like I go home. So sometimes I don't get to see anything. But the travel stuff is definitely part of the job, and it can be a grind just because, you know, you're in a pressurized tin tube for way longer than you should be. But it's fun and it's worth it. I will say there's a couple of things you could do, like in terms of like traveling internationally is rough because the time differences when you go to even like Europe is it will hit you. So like if you're like thinking about doing this like video stuff and also traveling, like the thing I highly suggest you do is take care of yourself. You know, when you go to a new place with a different time zone, try to land where there's some sunlight, right? Like try to land in the middle of the day, get yourself some sunlight, let your body adjust, give yourself a day or two to like adjust to your surroundings, adjust to the travel and stuff like that, and be kind to yourself. Because I think a lot of people will be like, I'm going to go fly to Japan to Evo Japan, and I'm going to get off the plane, I'm going to go right to work. You will be dead. Like you'll be dead and like 6 hours. I promise you, you will not survive. Like just be kind to yourself. Give yourself a little bit of leeway. Give yourself a little bit of time to adjust, and also like understand that fatigue is going to affect your productivity. Like, you know, when you go to a different place, you know, Japan is like 13 hours ahead. That's a hell of an adjustment to make. So like, you know, scale back your plans as necessary, and also just take time to kind of like enjoy where you're at. Like, you know, if you're in London, or like I went to London for Pokemon a couple months ago, and I've never been to London. So like I took a day and was like, I'm gonna go see Large Benjamin and like all of this kind of stuff, and like hang out and like go to like wherever I wanted to see, or just walk around the town and see what it's like. Give yourself time to really kind of take it in and kind of, you know, also enjoy the absurdity that you're in a different place to like, you know, talk to people about fighting games. That's fun.
How long is the flight to Japan?
Yeah, you're getting a little bit worried because I just peel back the curtain a little bit. You just told me that this is going to be your first time in Japan. So it can be anywhere from 12 to 17 hours.
Man,
So
that's
yeah,
that's
so
a long time.
this first one is gonna be rough. I'm just gonna tell you right now, it's gonna be rough because it's still rough for me. Like I do it a lot. Like I'm in Japan like 2 to 3 times a year, right, for work. And there are times where like I'll watch like an entire series of a Netflix show, or like I'll watch 4 movies, and then I look at like how much time is left, and they're like, you still got 9 hours on this flight. And I'll just get up and I'll go to the bathroom, and like I won't even use the bathroom. I'll just look in the mirror and I'm like, damn. Like damn, dude. Like, oh, okay, all right. So like, you know, give yourself, you know, bring a lot of movies, make sure you get up and you stretch. That's like super important on like that kind of flight, because like your body gets really stiff. Try to sleep on the plane if you can. Bring things that keep you like, you know, entertained. But yeah, this first one's gonna be rough. I wish you the best luck.
What's your favorite city that you've traveled to doing this stuff with gaming?
Man, I really like I feel like I haven't explored it enough, and I want to explore it more. But like Seoul, like Korea, is really interesting to me. Mostly because like they're a place that has had like professional gaming as a thing way longer than we have. Like, you know, it's a actual career over there. Where it's starting to like the early formations of that are starting to happen over here. But over there, so it's like really interesting where like gaming is like often celebrated, or like gaming bars and all this kind of stuff like that. And like also like the Korea folks are out there, and they have a studio out there and stuff like that. So I love to talk to them when I'm out there. But Seoul is really cool because like you can get around with like enough English and like the city, stuff like that. But it's also just very different. It's very unique, and the food is great. So like I like going over there. I like to see how the scene continues to evolve. You know, Tekken is like the big game out there. And like I've been really focused on Tekken lately, so like it's a really unique experience, stuff like that. Thailand was also really cool. Like I didn't get a lot of chance to explore Thailand as much as I want to, just because like Tekken stuff when we were there. But I really hope that they bring the finals back over there, because I really want to kind of dive deeper into that scene and explore it more. And it's also like hot all the time. Like I hate being cold. It's like 29 degrees outside right now. It's a nightmare. So like any place that's like really hot and also like has video games, I'm like, yeah, that's my spot.
Yeah. I can remember when I went to Evo,
Mm.
you pack everything I packed was just like, okay, I'm finna go to a place that's probably gonna be like 100 degrees every day.
Mm.
But the thing about it is, like, I didn't realize that Mandalay Bay, everything is connected. So really,
Yes.
you don't have to go outside at all
Mm-hmm.
unless you just decide, like, hey, I want to go out and get some food. So I was basically inside the whole time,
Yep.
and then I was cold. So I was like, well, I didn't know to bring some clothes and stuff like
Yep.
that. So another thing I didn't know about Evo was, man, like I wish I would have asked somebody. I went there and I packed shoes, but I packed like my nice shoes. I packed like some Vans
You
and
made the number one mistake
bro,
that
like
everyone makes for the first time.
the first day I couldn't feel my feet. I was like, this
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a long weekend. Like,
Mm-hmm. That's okay. So like if you've never been to Evo, either as a competitor or just like a fan, or even if you're doing some work there, the number one thing you gotta do is go get yourself some nice, comfortable sneakers. Don't wear Converses, don't wear anything without support. You want padding because you are going to be on your feet for 3 days. And it's going to hurt. So like I hear that same story, everybody's first Evo, usually at least like 60% of the field is like, my feet are killing me after day one. I'm like, look down and it's like some whack, no supportive like shoes or anything like that. I'm like, well, good
yeah,
luck.
yeah, because if you want to see Mandalay Bay is huge. Like
Mhm.
the venue is huge. If you want to see everything, explore. Like I remember, I fell for the first day. A buddy of mine that was there with me, he was like, "Hey, you want to go see the strip?" And I was like, "Sure." We walked to the strip,
Oh,
came back, and I had to wake up that morning and do work. And I was like, "Bro, like I can't. I feel like a ghost out here just
hmm
floating. Like I can't feel my feet. How am I gonna do this?" And it wasn't even day one of the event yet, so
yep.
it's crazy. But okay, so another question that comes with the FGC and traveling, it seems like the food that the FGC holds
Mm.
in high regard is Korean barbecue. Is it actually really that good? Like
Uh,
I've never had it.
so like that's like the running joke is like everyone goes to Korean barbecue, especially like in SoCal, like in California, like everybody
Mm,
kind of does it. But it's like barbecue, right? Like you're just cooking meat and stuff like that. And the food's great, like stuff like that. But really, what you're going for is like the experience of like chilling and the community kind
with
of
everybody,
experience.
yeah.
So like you usually are rolling like some cliques are rolling like 7 people, 8 people deep. So it's kind of hard to be like, let's go to Denny's, right? Like, because then you just like ambush like some poor waitress or something like that. But like, what everyone goes there because they want to talk and they want to like shoot the shit and like hang out and kind of like reconnected. They haven't seen people, stuff like that. So that's why a lot of people do it, and also just because it can hold like a lot of people. But yeah, it's good. I will never turn down Korean barbecue. I'll never turn down
Yeah.
meat of any kind. Like I'm all about it. But that's kind of like why you do it, is for the more of the social experience.
Okay. So what's your favorite major? Do you have one? Some people actually don't have a
Ooh.
favorite major. They're kind of like all of them's good. It's hard to choose. But what do you have a favorite major?
So like that's putting me on the spot a little bit. I'm gonna piss some people off with this. I truly love Combo Breaker. Like I'm like obviously
That's
I'm
the
wearing
number
the
one I
hoodie.
hear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the one I really enjoy. And for full disclosure, I work with Rick and stuff like that on the video side for Combo Breaker. I help make the trailers. I also help shoot the event, stuff like that.
That's another
Um,
question I had.
but I really enjoy it just because of the sheer amount of games it covers. Combo Breaker, people forget like Combo Breaker is running like 25 plus games in a weekend. And not just like the main games they have. Like they try to show love to every game. Like there's a damn Primal Rage tournament this year as a
Mm,
featured tournament. Um, and I really, 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 really enjoy that because like for a long time, people fixated on Street Fighter, or people
mm,
fixated on this game, or whatever like the number one game was at the time. Whereas I've always been like, especially with I mentioned before we started the channel, like I've always been like, there's more to fighting games than just one game. So to see that kind of represented in an event is really cool. That's probably my favorite. That's the one I try to go to every year, not just because I work for it, but that's like my priority. Is like I think Evo is a spectacle, and I think everyone should go to Evo for sure, at least once. Um, but if you want to play games and you want to like really get ingrained in the community, I think I think Combo Breaker is the event that you go to. Evo is like the world championship, and it's kind of like the pinnacle of what events should be. And I think Combo Breaker is like, it encapsulates the heart and soul of fighting games. And I'm really happy that Rick is now the general manager of Evo, because I'm starting to see some of that kind of come back to Evo. And like, you know, we got an arcade again. We have dedicated like console setups for side events and stuff like that. We have Vortex Gallery has their own stage, and they run things like everything from like Punch Planet to like the Rama 1/2 on SNES. So like that's really surreal. Like this year, like it was really surreal to be like on one side of the ballroom, you know, there's Mortal Kombat 11 files going on, and on the other half, it's like, you know, some weird obscure fighting game I've never, like Kazuna Encounter Finals is going on the other half, and they're both on giant stages, and they're both having it at the same time, and everyone's having a good time. They're like, yeah, this is the Evo. I want to see this continue to evolve. So I'm really happy that Rick has taken some of the ideas that he, you know, kind of developed in Combo Breaker, just brought over to Evo, because now I'll have two really good tournaments I want to go to. But you know, you might not be able to afford to go to a Combo Breaker or afford to go to Evo. So like if you're lucky enough to have somewhere in your area that you can go and play fighting games, like a small regional or a small local, stuff like that, like, you know, I think it's important to keep supporting those as well. And you know, if you can only make it to like some other kind of like smaller event, stuff like that, like, you know, don't be disappointed. But like everyone starts from like, you know, the ground level, so you never know. Like Combo Breaker, I think if you go look back at what Combo Breaker looked like when it first started, it was like not anything close to what it is now.
Yeah.
So yeah, like, you know, if you can't make it to these other big events, you can't make it to all this kind of stuff, but like continue to support your stuff, and, you know, maybe contribute and try to help grow it into the next big thing. You never know what'll happen.
Yeah. What city is Combo Breaker in?
It is it's technically not Chicago. You will land in Chicago, but it's I think it's Rosemont or Lombard. I forget exactly. It's like 20 minutes outside of the city.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not that far. It used to be much farther. It used to be like 45 minutes to an hour outside the city at Pheasant Run, and that was always a fun Uber ride. But now it's much closer, and they got a new venue last year too. Last year was their first year in the new venue. It's super nice.
Okay.
Almost everything's in one bed ballroom. I think there were two last year. They might expand to another one this year. I think they're still figuring that out. Yeah, it's just awesome. Like Combo Breaker is like, if you cannot afford to go to Evo, I definitely suggest going to Combo Breaker.
Okay. Yeah, Combo Breaker is one I hadn't been to. So, and I'm glad it's like in the summertime, because I've heard about flying into like places like Chicago and New York in the winter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
The Midwest is built different when it comes to cold in the winter. I've been there a couple of times where it's like, you know, it'd be 40, 50 degrees over here, and I go over there and it's like 15. I'm like, oh, tight. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. A lot of people spoke about going to Frosty Faustings, and like it was super cold. I was like, yeah, I believe you.
So I was there. I was actually at Frosty's. It was my first year at Frosty's, and I really enjoyed it.
Mystery tournament, yeah.
Yeah, so I took fourth in the mystery tournament. Hell yeah. But this is my first time going, because like I think Frosty's is quickly entering the conversation of like kind of like the top 4, top 5 kind of major events. So like, you know, they got Combo Breaker, Evo, CEO, but like Frosty's is quietly kind of exploded. I would say, like, in terms of like, I think they need to get more space, because obviously like it was kind of cramped and stuff like that, and I didn't think they were exactly ready for like how big they've grown in the past couple of years. But I think people should keep an eye on like Frosty Faustings as like the next kind of big event. Also like ECT, East Coast Throwdown, I think is also like, those two are kind of like the two events that I keep my eye on. It's like these events are growing fast, and they're smart about how they do things, and they offer unique things. So like, but at Frosty's, you know, at one day it was -16. It was like 0 degrees outside, feels like -16. And my friend was like, hey, do you want to get food? I was like, it got to be inside this hotel, because I am not stepping out there. Like, no.
Yeah. You running from it like a bully outside or something. But yeah, so I wanna I wanna go to Frosty's, but man, like, that cold weather in me don't
It's
get
rough.
along.
They
Yeah.
did a good job of like they did a really good job of having shuttles. So like if you were at any of the, like the main hotel or any of the kind of their 4 or 5 kind of overflow hotels. They had a shuttle bus that would come pick you up every hour or whatever, and also drop you off every hour. So like they realized, like, even though like these hotels were kind of close to each other, that nobody wants to walk to the venue. So like they did a good job of setting that up in a way of like, well, you don't have to. You can get an Uber or you can wait for the shuttle bus to come around.
Okay. So I know before you said when you first got into gaming, was it Guilty Gear was the game that
It was
you
a
kind of
Guilty Gear XX and Accent Core were like the games that like I kind of like really put a lot of time into as a kid.
what was your first fighting game?
My first fighting game was Street Fighter 2. I played it
The classic.
yeah, on launch in the arcades, like as a kid, like I was like a 5-year-old or whatever. Um, and because my mom used to take me to arcades in Brooklyn, that was like the thing that we used to do. Because she was also a little bit of a gamer herself, so she would bring me to arcades, and then I'd play people and stuff like that. And like, my cousins introduced me to it one night on Super Nintendo, and that's where I got really hooked. They just beat my ass, so I was like, I'm gonna get good enough to beat them. And that's like the feels like the story of a lot of people getting into fighting games. But yeah, so like it was like Street Fighter 2 was the original. And then there's like I would like expand out there. So like SNK was also like really big for me. In fact, I think I played a lot more SNK games than I did like Capcom stuff. So like Fatal Fury, King of Fighters, stuff like that. Like the character designs in like SNK games was like drew me in dramatic. Like Terry Bogart's my favorite fighting game character of all time. Like Terry Bogart rules. Like everything about his design and stuff like that. It's like, man, I gotta keep following these games. And then he would show up in like King of Fighters. I'm like, what? Terry's in this? All right, I gotta play this game and stuff like that. So it's like really kind of like Street Fighter 2 was kind of the gateway, but the arcade itself, especially during that time, the 90s, stuff like that, like it opened up a whole world of like, oh my God, look at all these fighting games. Like these are awesome.
Okay. Yeah, my first fighting game ever was also a Street Fighter game. Seems like a lot of people, majority of people, it was Street Fighter, but mine was actually Alpha 2. It wasn't
Nice.
actually Street Fighter 2.
Mm.
And it's funny when we were playing Alpha, we thought that's just how Street Fighter was. We didn't know that every iteration of Street Fighter played different.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time Street Fighter 4 came out, because we were playing Alpha until Street Fighter 4 came out.
Mm-hmm.
When 4 came out, we was like, man, this isn't real Street Fighter. Like, but we had no idea like how it would change, all the time. So, did you get into much 3D gaming when you were younger?
So I played I would dabble. I always dabble in fighting games, like games I don't like main in or whatever like that. So like I used to play like a little bit of Virtua Fighter. I love Virtua Fighter 4. I'm not good at it, but like I'd love to play on the PS2. Uh Dead or Alive, Tekken 5 and Tekken 5 DR. I was in community. I went to like community college for a couple of years, and like that would be the game that everybody played for like hours on end. It'd be like Guilty Gear Accent Core and like Tekken 5 DR. So like that was like kind of my exposure to Tekken, was getting destroyed every day in the game room. And ironically now I play a lot more Tekken than I do like Street Fighter at this point. So like it's kind of switched. But like I would say like the main 3D games I grew up with were definitely like Soul Calibur 2, Tekken 5 DR, a little bit of Dead or Alive here and there, and like Virtua Fighter 4. So like I try to keep a little bit just my toes in at least, or like 1 foot in, kind of keep experience. But now definitely kind of like I was playing Tekken 7 the other day. I'm trying to learn Jin on hitbox. Like so like it shifted from like primarily 2D and a little bit of 3D games to now like a lot of 3D games, and like there's a little bit more of a balance.
Okay. Could you name your favorite fighting game soundtrack of all time?
Favorite fighting game soundtrack of all time on the spot? Oh man, that's tough. I think Guilty Gear is up there. I think Guilty Gear is in all of its iterations and stuff like that is really up there, just because of it was so unique in terms of like it was metal, right? Like it's rock and metal and like a little bit of pump when you play like mainstream and stuff like that. And like I really love Strive. Like I know like there was like a big debate about like there's always like a weird debate about fighting game music. But like there's like a big debate about why are there vocals in this song and all this kind of stuff. Like I'm trying to fight and stuff like that. And like for me, I love it. Like, oh God. I would also say really like a follow up to that. Like Guilty Gear is probably at the top for me just because of how long I've been with the series. Yeah. But after doing the KI stuff, I think that is either very close second place or very close first place, because like the music in KI is phenomenal. So much that I did 2 whole extra documentaries on
Yeah.
just the music and audio, and how they use the audio, especially in like the reboot. Like the original is like one of the most iconic soundtracks of all time. Like it came with the game, right? And then they took that and Mick Gordon and stuff like that in the reboot and Cell Dweller and Atlas Plug and all this kind of stuff. And they really took it to like another level and really evolved it. And then with how the developers made that flow within the fights of each game and stuff like that, I was like super super impressed. And in fact, like when Killer Instinct was coming out for Xbox One, I didn't really pay attention to it. I was like, oh, Killer Instinct. I remember that game. I messed around with it on the N64 and stuff like that. That's cool. But it wasn't until I heard Orchid's track and how it was used in a fight. And I was like, okay, I might have to buy an Xbox One just
Yeah.
for like this track. I didn't. I didn't buy an Xbox One. But eventually when it came to like PC and stuff like that, I was like, man, this game rules. So I would say Guilty Gear is definitely like the number one. And then close to that or on par with that is Killer Instinct.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, as someone who's a cinematographer,
Mm.
documentarian, if that's the right word for it, you tell stories. So, are you someone that really cares about the story of a fighting game, or you more so someone like, look, I'm just here to push buttons.
I am the weirdo that loves lore in fighting games. I
Yeah.
love story. Like I remember like trying to piece together the story of like the original Street Fighter leading into like Third Strike and stuff like that. Like the Tiamat like Street Fighter lore guide is out there somewhere that kind of explains like, this happened over here, this happened over, this is canon, this is canon. Like I would always like read the like Virtual Fighter 4 makes me laugh because like I would always read like the instruction manual to find out who won canonically the
Hmm.
last Virtual Fighter tournament and stuff like that. So like I love story and fighting games. One of my favorite, like I talk about Mortal Kombat all the time in terms of like 9, 10, and 11 because like they are like it's probably one of the greatest like fighting game, like probably one of the greatest trilogy stories in gaming in my opinion. Like 9 is kind of goofy and a retelling of all the events of Mortal Kombat's like 1 to 4, whatnot, and Deadly Alliance stuff like that, that were either told in like kind of weird little mini game modes or like in like the intro, the attract screen in arcades. And like I really loved it for that. And then like to see what they did with like evolving the story further in 10, 11, and how they closed the book in 11 with like all the time stuff. Like I I I can gush about those 3 games till the cows come home. Like it's so good. So yeah, I really do care about story and character and stuff like that in fighting games, and I'm really happy to see that that's becoming like the norm and what people are starting to expect. Like NetherRealm really pushed the genre forward with those kind of modes. And like
Hmm.
everyone is still kind of playing catch up, but I'm really happy that the audience is really responding to it. I know competitive fighting game players like whatever, like I don't care about this kind of stuff. Like well, that's cool. They don't have to. But for me to
Yeah.
see like story become more of a forefront and like what's being presented in these games, I'm super happy about because I love story.
Yeah. One of the most intricate, difficult lores for me to keep up with is KOF. It's so many moving pieces in KOF. That lore is crazy. And one of the most interesting lores that I think I've ever seen is actually Tekken and it's because of one guy is Heihachi. Like he just doesn't die, no matter what they do.
Yeah.
No matter what they do to him, he doesn't lose. He doesn't die. And I'm like this. So it's gonna be interesting to see if he comes back in Tekken 8 because supposedly he's dead now. But we'll see.
I think he's gone. I think he's dead. Yeah, I think and, like I like Tekken 7 story mode for the most part. There was some presentation stuff I didn't like the weird like journalist stuff like that.
Mhm.
But yeah, I like that they killed him, right? Like they're moving this story forward and now it's between Kazuya and Jin and all that kind of stuff and I want to see where this goes next.
Yeah. All right, so I got one more question for you, get you up out of here. But what's your favorite documentary that you've done? What's your favorite video you've done?
Favorite video that I've done? It's probably still the original Rise of the Fighting Game Community one because that one like was very
Mhm.
earnest and I got to kind of follow players I really liked and stuff like that. Like I've known Lord Knight for a long time, so it was really cool to kind of like dive deeper into his story and kind of also kind of explain to like a wider audience like all these different games and stuff like that. And also just it's still the one that I think I put like the most on the line with. Like I was like really trying to make a name for myself in that one. And I really want to get back to doing stuff like that again soon, like just traveling and telling the story and stuff like that. So I would probably say that one, and then the KI one is like kind of right after that.
The Evo 2023 gaming lineup has been announced for the main games. What were your thoughts on it?
I think it's cool. I think it's it's kind of it was kind of easy to predict. Like you can kind of tell there's some surprises. I think people are surprised about Multiblade making it back, but I'm really happy it did. And I'm really excited to see that there's not going to be a dedicated spot to showcase older titles. So like Marvel 3 being back in 2023 is awesome, and the fact that it's going to have a $25,000 minimum prize pool is insane. So I'm super about it. And we'll see. Like I think Evo has found a really good rhythm in terms of like what it wants to give players and what games it wants to highlight and what games it wants to showcase. And I'm happy that they're starting to expand out and be like, no, we're not going to showcase just these like 8 or 9 titles, but we're going to try to showcase fighting games as a whole. Like make this really kind of like the place where like if you want to play the best and the best, you go here. And if you want to celebrate this genre, you go here. So I'm really excited to see what the future brings.
Yes, we should be seeing a whole lot of names. I mean, with Street Fighter 6, with UMVC, we should be in with the prize pool that said we should be seeing a lot of old and new names coming back. It's gonna be fantastic. What did you think about the situation to make only top 6 now, only being the only ones rewarded?
I'm gonna get in trouble for this for sure. I think it should be top 4.
Really?
I go the other way with it. We're like, Evo is like, it's the place where you go to really test yourself. Best players in the world all show up to Vegas and they duke it out to see who's the best. And the issue is that like, it runs really, really late. Like I don't think we got out of Sunday at Evo until 2:00 in the morning.
It was late, yeah.
So like they've got to like find a balance, and like top 6 is cool, but like for me, like if we're really gonna celebrate like the best of the best, top 4 finals. Like these are the 4 best people in this game this year. Let's go. Like if we got to celebrate time, let's just cut it. I think the issue that a lot of people have is that like only like the payout I think is still top 6 or top 8. I can't remember. Like the payout is not like
the payout
what people
6.
Yeah. So like it's like, oh well, that rubs a lot of people the wrong way in terms of like people trying to make careers and all kind of stuff. But like, I think there's a balance between trying to support like people financially, like all these players are putting in the hard work, and then also kind of rewarding like the best of the best, because like it should be an accomplishment to win Evo or make that final stage. So navigating like what's too restrictive and what's not, like, it's tough, but I think over the years we're going to see it. But like for me, yeah, I would top 6. I mean, it's either first or last in my opinion. So when it comes to that, but yeah, I think they're in a tough situation, but like if you were me, I'd be like top 4, let's go, like all the way.
I could definitely get that from that side of like, the cream of the crop is here. So I can get that. And also from a production side, I mean, hey, you don't have to finally get into bed by 4 and then your plane is leaving at 8 or 9. So you don't have to do that anymore. So, but yeah, man. So that's all the questions I have. I once again appreciate you coming and doing the interview, man. It's great talking to you. Somebody that we've looked up to in the FGC and stuff like that. So can you give everybody where they can find you?
Yeah, so my YouTube channel is Hold Back to Block. You can find that at youtube.com/holdbacktoblock, or just search Hold Back to Block in YouTube. We have a Twitter account for there called twitter.com/holdbacktoblock as well. And you can follow me personally on Twitter, where I just kind of say where help comes to mind at twitter.com/thebestabon. That's where you can find me. And if you like my work and you want to support it with some cash or whatnot, I would really appreciate that over at patreon.com/holdbacktoblock. That's where you can find me.
All right, man. Make sure you guys go follow him and, support him and all that he's doing. So we'll see you on the next interview. Peace out, everybody.
Bye.